Hey guys, Michael Stillwell here from Stillwell Pianos in Mesa, Arizona, and I'm sitting in front of another Mason & Hamlin AA. This thing was made in 1929. AA's measure 6 foot 2 inches from the very front to the very back. If you've watched our channel, you know that I love Mason & Hamlin. It's what I have in my house. It's what I talk about the most, and it's probably what we rebuild the most and what we sell the most, because these are awesome, awesome pianos. They're so overbuilt. They have an amazing, amazing sound that's just unlike anything else, in my opinion. We have a lot of warm richness down here, but it's almost a rounded tone. I always describe Masons like this. Some brands will hit you in the face. You'll be playing piano, it's just like all the sounds coming like this, especially in American pianos and Japanese pianos. A lot of times you just feel like you're playing and all the sounds are just coming at you kind of like a speaker. Mason & Hamlin pianos, somehow, I don't know how, in my opinion, it's more like the sound kind of envelops all around you and you can just kind of feel the music a lot more. And I think that has to do with how well built these are and overbuilt they are. The sustain is crazy. I mean, this will just ring on forever and ever and ever. And I love that about Masons. Unfortunately, I don't have a Mason & Hamlin grand in my house. I have an upright because I have 4 kids and our house is not big enough for a grand piano, but I love coming in and playing these ones. Now this particular Mason & Hamlin AA, this was built in 1929. So we have the golden era. The golden era is technically 1900 to 1930, depending on who you talk to. Sometimes they bump that to like 33, and they'll bump it down to maybe to like 1890. But most of the time when you say the golden era, you're talking about 1900 to 1930, and that's when American pianos were at their peak. That's really an American term. It doesn't really work with European pianos as much, but that's when in America people really cared about pianos and they put a ton of money and a ton of effort and resources into building really, really nice pianos. People invested in them. They bought these things. These were the price of some apartments back then, and people bought them like crazy because they would pass them down for generations and generations. This is a 1929. So the closer you get to the 1930s, the better. So this is pretty much as close to that as you can possibly get, and the sustain is awesome on this thing. This is such a beautiful piano. I wish I could take credit for rebuilding the action. I am going to pull the action and show you what we got going inside, but we did not rebuild this action. Somebody rebuilt this piano before we bought it, probably about 5 to 10 years ago, but they didn't do the cabinet. So all we really did was bring this in. We stripped and refinished the cabinet. Same thing with the plate. Same thing with the soundboard. We also replaced the pin block, restrung the piano. We put new key tops on. We painted the sharps. And like I said, we fully stripped and refinished the cabinet itself, buffed all the hardware. But now I'm going to play it for you guys. So the big thing that I like about Mason & Hamlin's, like I keep talking about, is this warmth. A lot of times when you have maybe Asian pianos and stuff, you kind of hear this metallic-y, zingy sound, and as you just heard, there is none of that. I mean, I'm playing soft here, and it's just so smooth and pure and clean like glass. I love that about these pianos. And these, especially down here in the bass, we start to get a little bit of growl. I'm going to play it a little bit heavier now so I can get this thing to kick back at me a little bit. So you can notice the notes are a little bit more rounded. They're not so zingy and poppy right in your face. Down here in the bass, we're going to have a lot of clarity. So that's one of the things about when you get into a higher end piano. You start to hear the individual notes a lot more. A lot of times when you play like kind of a crappy piano or something that's maybe kind of a, I don't know, we call them like budget pianos, that it's like, hey, I want a piano in my house. I want it to look cool, but I don't really play piano. That's the pianos we sell to those people. Those are the pianos that, yes, they play and they make noise and you can tune them and regulate them and everything, but at the end of the day, they're just kind of, I don't know, decoration more than an instrument. These are real instruments. So I'm going to play down here in the bass so you can kind of hear that the sound doesn't meld together like it does on some of the more entry-level products. About this. As you can tell, I kind of get sucked into Masons and I'll just fart around on them all day. But screw that. Let's take this action out and show you what we got going on inside. All right, so now that I got the action out, you can see why we didn't have to do much to this thing because it looks all brand new. So somebody did this work to this piano before we got it. They replaced everything, all the hammer shanks and whippings and I just said whippings. Hammer shanks and whippings and back checks were all replaced, and they're in just really, really good condition. So we just didn't really feel like we had to replace any of this stuff and take anything off because it was sounding really good, and obviously it's brand new and it's playing really well. So when we got it in, we just basically hyper regulated it and dialed it in. The rebuild is done really well. So sometimes I talk about rebuilders before us taking on pianos and being like, this is a crappy rebuild, which isn't really fair because a lot of times crappy rebuilds usually means that the customer didn't want to pay for a full one. So they cut a lot of corners just because they weren't getting paid a ton of money to do the work. So that's not really fair, but this one was done really, really well. So we didn't have to do much to it. They just skipped the cabinet. They just did everything but the cabinet. So when we got it in, we did have to do concert regulation on it, but that's kind of normal for us. We also replaced all the key tops and lacquered the sharps here. We rebushed the keys on the balance rail and the front rail just to make it a lot tighter and more smooth playing. And it turned out really, really well. So guys, now that you've heard the piano, I've shown you the inside. If you have any questions about this particular piano or any other piano on our website for that matter, give me a call or shoot me an email at michael@stillwellpianos.com. Thanks for watching, guys.